Hi, my name is Mellisa, and my refutation speech is being responded to my opponent's claim that the legislation of hemp cultivation would have a positive effect on the U.S. economy. My opponent's secondary claims, the first one was that hemp is different from marijuana and is wrongly grouped with its psychoactive cousin in cannabis policy. His second secondary claim was that hemp has numerous profitable industrial uses, and his third claim was that criminalization of hemp cultivation has had a negative impact on the economy. My response to my opponent's claim is that the legalization or illegalization of hemp would not have an effect on the U.S. economy. My secondary claims are that marijuana is a type of hemp. My second claim is that the U.S. has plenty of other profitable industries and doesn't need hemp industry. And the third is that legalizing the cultivation of hemp would probably bring with it the legalization of marijuana as well. So my first supporting claim is that marijuana is hemp. According to a website that I found on the marijuana link, it was that marijuana is a form of hemp, and hemp that is composed of less than 3% THC is considered non-remedial, and hemp that has more than 3% THC is considered remedial and is called marijuana. And if you guys don't know, THC stands for tetrahydrocannabinol, and more than 3% THC allows that person to get high off of smoking that plant. In other words, according to a source from examiner.com, they said, in other words, in order to receive a standard psychoactive dose, the person would need to smoke 10 to 12 hemp cigarettes over a short period of time. This person was saying this because they were saying that hemp wasn't as bad as marijuana, but by them saying that being able to smoke 10 to 12 hemp cigarettes, they would get high, it proves that there is a way to get high off of hemp, although it would be smoking a lot, but it's possible. So, saying all that, my opponent's claim that hemp is different from marijuana is false, because in fact marijuana is a type of hemp. My secondary claim is that the U.S. has plenty of other profitable industries and it does not need the cultivation of hemp. All the goods that could be made out of hemp, like clothing, textiles, food, beverages, paper, building, fuel, etc., are still manufactured today without us having hemp. Oil is drilled from the ground, paper is made from trees, clothes is made out of nylon, cotton, etc. The economy is producing these goods and making immense amounts of money without the need of hemp. My last supporting claim, is that the legalization of hemp would probably bring with it the legalization of marijuana as well. Because these plants are so much alike, the legalization of hemp would most likely cause a fierce response from pro-marijuana activists. It makes sense that if you legalize one of them, you would also have to legalize the other, because they are so similar. Most people are mostly against the legalization of cultivating hemp because of its tie with marijuana. And the legalization of marijuana is a whole other story and controversy, but it would definitely tie in with the legalization of hemp. And that in itself would have an effect on our society and economy, but there's no way to prove if it would be positive or negative in itself. So my conclusion is that the legalization or illegalization of hemp will not have an effect on the U.S. economy.
All right, well, you got a little stuck at the beginning, but you got to the proposition and the secondary claims pretty clearly. Basically, you're arguing a counterclaim, and none of your arguments is being directly applied to the secondary claims that the advocate presented. Sometimes there's some parallel development, like on the issue of whether or not marijuana is the equivalent of hemp, but most of your argument there is just an explanation of the relationship between the two. If your point is correct, then I guess that has some relevance to the third point that, in essence, we'd be if we made hemp a product that was acceptable, then it's I guess a gateway drug to marijuana. Hemp becomes the gateway drug to growing marijuana. I think there might be an argument to be developed there. I don't think it's likely that anybody's going to consume 10 hemp cigarettes in order to get high. That's an interesting idea, but it's not something that seems like it's really a risk that we have to worry about. The argument that has the most proof on it from the advocate, the one that is most directly connected to the proposition, is the one that you spend the least amount of time on. And I think you have a couple of legitimate points. Look, all the products that come from hemp we can get from other sources. But that's a premise on your part without any evidence, and I don't doubt that it's true. Let's face it, we've got oil from all kinds of other sources. We have plenty of these other materials, but it wouldn't hurt you to develop some information about the availability of those other sources. I don't remember if the advocate talked about any other advantages to them, for instance, whether there are environmental advantages to producing it from this way or that way. There might have been some development, for instance, about recycling on paper, or about growth of the hemp and how much land it uses versus other products that we're using to get clothing materials or paper or something along those lines. There needed to be a little bit more discussion on that particular issue. But the general issue when it comes to the impact on the economy, does the advocate ever say how big an impact on the economy, how it would be measured, how we would weigh this? And of course, then we have to think about what the consequence would be. If hemp is in fact an effective competitor to other products, then those other products are likely to suffer. That's a comparison that I think ought to be made, and it goes begging here for some attention. The third point, I think it's a consequence, it's a potential disad if we were to take this action, but you don't really develop that as a disad and talk about especially what the economic consequences would be, since that's what the argument is. So it's a kind of a generic response to the issues. You don't really talk about the advocate's evidence specifically. You basically just have a counterpoint argument that's being developed on its own, and some of the points are probably valid, but they could benefit from a little bit more information. All right. Thank